Think about all the trading that happens across India every day. Gold, oil, metals, you name it.
Hmm.
There's one major player handling a huge slice of the financial action. The Multi-Commodity Exchange of India,
Yeah,
MCX.
they're really the big name in Indian commodity derivatives. Unquestionably the leader.
Absolutely. And today, we're not just scratching the surface, we're doing a deep dive into their latest results.
Right, Q4 and the full financial year ending March 31st, 2025.
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding MCX's performance, their strategy. Basically, what's going on.
We've sifted through the official docs, the board meeting outcome, investor presentation, the press release,
Mhm.
all dropped on May 8th, 2025.
So our mission here is to pull out the key stuff, the numbers, the decisions, what it all means.
Yep. We'll cover the financials, trading performance, things like auditors, dividends,
Yeah.
and what's driving their growth. Should be good.
Okay, let's get straight into it. The big picture first. The full financial year, FY24-25, really jumped out from the financials.
Well, the annual figures show some pretty strong growth. Their total income, 1,208.86 crore,
Okay.
which is up around 59% compared to the previous year's 758.94 crore. That's a significant leap.
59%. Wow. And operating revenue.
Similar story there. Jumped about 63%. Hit 11,112.66 crore, up from around 683 crore. So serious top-line growth.
Really impressive numbers. What about the bottom line? Profitability.
That's where it gets even more dramatic. Net profit, Pete, it surged. We're talking 574% year-on-year.
574%?
Yep. Landed at 560.04 crore compared to just 83.1 crore the year before. Massive increase.
Incredible. And EBITDA.
Also very strong. 761.51 crore. That gives them an EBITDA margin of about 63%.
63% margin. That's quite healthy.
Very. And interestingly, this total income figure, it's the highest MCX has ever recorded in a financial year.
Highest ever. Okay. Now, you mentioned average realization per transaction earlier.
Yeah.
How did that track for the year?
That's an interesting one. It actually dipped slightly. Came in at 2.08 per lakh,
Down from...
down from viewpoint one other per lakh the previous year.
Huh. So revenue and profit way up, but realizations slightly down. What might that suggest?
Well, it could mean a few things. Maybe higher volumes and contracts with slightly lower fees, or perhaps, some competitive factors at play, something to watch.
Right. The lack here is about the contract value traded, yeah.
Exactly. It's a standard unit for measuring that transaction value.
Okay, good overview for the full year. Let's zoom in on the last quarter, Q4, January to March 2025. Did the strong performance hold up?
It certainly did. The momentum carried right through. Total income for Q4 was 320.49 crore,
And the year-on-year comparison?
up about 61% from the euro, 199.45 crore in Q4 of the previous year.
Okay, consistent growth, operating revenue.
Mirrored that pretty closely.
Yeah.
291.33 crore, also up around 61% year on year. So yeah, a strong finish to the year.
Good to see that consistency. And profitability in Q4.
Net profit was 135.46 crore. That's up from about 88 crore in the same quarter last year.
And the margin.
The PAT margin for Q4 was around 42%. EBITDA came in at 189.35 crore, up from roughly 120 crore.
Okay. EBITDA margin for the quarter.
About 59%. And again, just like the full year, that average realization ticked down slightly in Q4 as well, 2.10 per lakh versus 2.13.
Interesting consistency there, too. So strong growth across the board, particularly profit jumps. Now, dividends, the board made a recommendation.
Yes, they did. They've recommended a final dividend of 30 per equity share. That's on a face value of 10 per share.
30 rupees per share. That's quite substantial.
It is. Reflects the strong profits, obviously, but it's still subject to shareholder approval at the upcoming AGM, the 23rd one.
Right, standard procedure. Okay, let's switch gears to the actual trading activity, the volumes. What's the story there?
This is where things get really dynamic. For the full year, the combined average daily turnover ADT for futures and options, it just exploded, up 101% year on year. Doubled. Pretty much. Reached 2,019,063 crore daily on average.
Wow. And options specifically.
Options notional ADT was up even more, 115%. Hit 1,091,910 crore.
Notional value. So that's the underlying value of the contracts being traded.
Exactly. Huge number. Shows massive interest in scale and options activity. Even standard commodity futures ADT saw a big jump, up 38% to 27,153 crores.
That surge in options is fascinating. What's driving that, do you think?
It probably points to a maturing market. More sophisticated participants using options for hedging or speculation. It's great for MCX's revenue mix.
Makes sense. And what about the number of traders? More people involved.
Definitely. The number of trading clients for futures and options combined grew 39% year on year.
How many clients is that?
Reached 12.96 lakh, so wider participation. And the options premium ADT, the actual money-changing hands, also surged 3,130 crore daily average, up from about 1,700 crore.
So more people trading and trading options much more actively. How did Q4 look in terms of these volume trends?
The momentum just kept building.
Yeah.
Q4 options notional ADT hit 2,020,936 crores. That's up 94% year on year, and actually up 7% from the previous quarter, Q3.
Still growing quarter on quarter then?
Yep, sustained growth. Premium ADT for options also jumped significantly in Q4, reaching 3,288 crore.
Any standout trading day?
Oh yeah, they hit record combined daily turnover futures and options twice recently. First on Jan 13th, 2025, with over 5 lakh crore.
5 lakh crore in a single day.
Yeah, and then they smashed that record again on April 30th, 2025, hitting over 5.8 lakh crore. Shows the kind of peaks they can handle.
Absolutely staggering numbers. Okay, beyond the financial trading, MCX handles physical deliveries too, right? How did that look?
Yes, they do.
Oh.
For the full year, FY24-25, they handled deliveries of 7.08 metric tons of gold, all variants combined.
Okay, and silver?
Silver was much larger volume, naturally.
Yeah.
663.27 metric tons delivered. Again, across all variants, it shows that link to the physical market.
Definitely. What about base metals?
For the full year, 69,384 metric tons of base metals were delivered through the exchange.
And the breakdown for Q4?
In Q4 specifically, it was 1.46 tons of gold and 174.26 tons of silver.
Oh.
And for base metals in that final quarter, deliveries totaled 19,397 tons. Smaller than trading volumes, sure, but vital for the real economy link.
Understood. So significant physical side too. Now market share. How dominant is MCX in commodity futures?
Extremely dominant. For
Yeah.
FY24-25, their market share in terms of the value of commodity futures contracts traded was, well, approximately 98%.
98%. That's almost the entire market.
Pretty much. If you break it down, 100% share in precious metals and stones futures, 100% in base metals futures,
Total dominance there.
and almost 100%, 99.99% in energy futures. Agri-commodities is smaller for them, share-wise about 1.91%. Index futures, again, 100% share, but it's a smaller part of the overall turnover currently.
And which segments drive most of their turnover?
Precious metals and stones are the biggest chunk, about 64.6% of turnover, then energy at 23.8% and base metals at 11.5%. So yeah, their dominance in those key areas is crucial.
Clearly. Okay, let's shift to governance. There were some important appointments mentioned in the board meeting outcome.
Yes, key appointments for auditors. Important for transparency and compliance. They appointed Mrs. V. Sankar Iyer & Co. as the statutory auditor and also the tax auditor.
V. Sankar Iyer & Co. Any background on them?
Oh yeah, long-standing firm, established way back in 1952. Lots of experience, especially in financial services audits. It's a 5-year term, subject to shareholder approval, of course.
A firm with that history definitely brings credibility. And secretarial auditors.
That's Emma's AVS and Associates. They're practicing company secretaries based out of Navi Mumbai, established in 2016.
Okay.
Also appointed for 5 years, starting FY 2025-26, pending shareholder approval. They're noted for expertise in secretarial audits, compliance management, and they are peer-reviewed.
Right, so shoring up the governance side. Looking forward now, what did MCX identify as their key growth drivers? Where do they see future expansion coming from?
They listed several key areas. One is distribution, things like banks broking arms getting involved, banks acting as clearing members. That broadens access.
Okay, wider reach.
Then there's participation. Getting more institutional players involved, mutual funds, portfolio managers, foreign portfolio investors. The SEBI's direct market access facility helps here.
More big players coming in.
Exactly. Also, indices and options, particularly the growth in trading commodity index options. That's a big focus.
New product areas.
And other initiatives, too. Things like exploring trading platforms for coal, getting more domestic brands approved for delivery, introducing electricity derivatives, basically diversifying their offerings.
Sounds like a multi-pronged approach, broadening access, attracting institutions, and launching new products. Which of those feel most significant short-term?
I'd say the institutional participation and the index options seem like the big ones for near-term impact. Institutions bring volume and sophistication.
Right.
And index options can become very liquid very quickly, attracting broad interest and really boosting overall turnover.
Makes sense. Now, MCX has that crucial subsidiary working behind the scenes, right? The clearing corporation.
Absolutely. MCX Clearing Corporation Ltd., or MCX CCL, it's a 100% subsidiary, started operations back in September 2018.
And its role.
Think of it as the safety net. It's the central counterparty for every single trade on MCX. It guarantees settlement, taking away counterparty risk for traders.
Crucial for market confidence.
Definitely. And their Settlement Guarantee Fund, the SGF, has a corpus of 930.14 crore. That's the backup fund.
A substantial safety net.
It is. Plus, NCXCCL has ISO certifications for things like information security, quality management, business continuity, shows commitment to robust operations.
Good foundation.
Oh,
And lastly, the leadership driving all this.
yeah, the presentation emphasizes a very experienced board and management team. You've got people like Dr. Harsh Kumar Pamwala as chairman, ex-NABARD chair, lots of development finance experience.
Okay.
Mr. Chandrasekhar Verma on the board, former head of Steel Authority of India.
Deep industry knowledge.
And management-wise, Mr. Pravina Rai, the MD and CEO, came from MPCI, where she was COO, huge experience in India's financial infrastructure. And the COO, Mr. Manoj Jain, has over 26 years in the financial sector.
So a lot of diverse, relevant experience at the top.
Definitely seems like a strong team guiding the ship.
Okay, great. So let's try and wrap this up. What are the main takeaways from this whole deep dive into MCX's results?
I think it's pretty clear. One, really strong financial performance in FY25 and Q4. Big jumps in income, revenue, and especially that net profit.
Yeah, the profit surge was remarkable.
Two, trading volumes are booming, particularly options trading. That's a major trend. Three, a significant dividend proposed, showing confidence.
Right.
Four, key auditor appointments, strengthening governance. And five, a clear strategy focused on growth drivers like institutional participation and new products.
And all underpinned by that solid clearinghouse, MCX-CCL.
Exactly. It all reinforces their dominant position in the Indian commodity derivatives market.
A position they look set to build on, not just defend.
For sure. Which leads to a thought, really, for you listening.
On.
Given this performance and these growth plans, how do you think this increasing institutional involvement and these new products, like index options, might really reshape MCX's growth path over the next few years?
Interesting question.
And it may be also, how might bigger global commodity trends or even regulatory tweaks here in India play into their future performance and, well, the wider Indian financial scene?
Definitely food for thought, how external factors might interact with this internal momentum. Great points.
Something to keep an eye on.
Well, that brings us to the end of this particular deep dive on MCX. Thanks for joining us to unpack all that information.
My pleasure. It's fascinating to go through. Until the next one.